Welcome to another Demarcation Media LEGO review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Bad Batch Attack Shuttle. Now, I know this review is like a year and a half late. This set is coming close to retiring, so I went ahead and grabbed it when I was at a LEGO store a couple months ago. And basically, I've been pretty out of touch with the LEGO Star Wars line, and lately just started buying some more again. So I'm kind of getting sets that are a year or so old. I've got a couple others that I want to take a look at that are slightly older, but this one was kind of a surprise to me when it was revealed because I was really positive that the Bad Batch was going to be spread out between at least 2 sets, if not 3 or 4. But no, LEGO did something that they rarely do. It gave us the entire crew, or almost the entire crew. We'll talk about that more later. All in one set, which is great. And then there's the price tag that goes along with it, but we'll also talk about that later. For now, let's just go ahead and take a look at the box, which I'm going to go ahead and take my camera off of its tripod so you can see. It's a pretty large box, and it's not a shape that we get often. It's like this big square, and the branding is kind of unique because we get 3 of the original members of the Bad Batch up here. Obviously, the 4th is not there because he is, well, yeah, I don't think I need to explain. Oh, yeah, and obviously spoilers for the show. If you haven't seen it yet, probably don't watch this video because I'm definitely going to be spoiling it. Around the back, we get to see some of the more features of the set, like opening top minifigures with their helmets off, except for the one member that we aren't talking about, and how the wings fold. I will say for the volume of stuff that you get inside the box does feel a little large. Yes, there is like 900 pieces, so it kind of makes sense, but still, it feels a little larger maybe than it needed to be, just overall. And then instructions, pretty much the same size, or not same size, same shape as the box. The instructions definitely don't need to be the same size. Pretty standard instructions, and there's a Skywalker Saga ad, which the game is finally an actual thing. It's not delayed, so that's pretty cool. I hope to play it at some point, but we'll see if that ever ends up happening. And then we just get kind of an ad for some of the other stuff. The Mandalorian Starfighter, Anakin Starfighter, 501st Battle Pack, the overpriced AAT, all the figures that come. Wait, I just realized, is there... Okay, that's weird. So on this side, we have the figures for the Imperial light cruiser, but that set is not shown on this side at all. And same for Boba Fett, the Boba Fett's Slave 1 set, the Marauder, and the Imperial, the Mandalorian Forge. None of those sets are shown on this side. And yet, we get pictures of it. Wait, there was really an Anakin Starfighter released at the same time? That's weird. Yeah, that's kind of weird, the way they did this ad. That's strange. Very strange. But let's go ahead and grab the set and take a closer look. And there we go. That is the entire contents of the box, all assembled. So we have the ship itself. Wait, did I say Marauder for the little Imperial thing? Is that also called a Marauder? Because this is a Marauder, or this is the Marauder. I can't remember if that's the exact name that they call it, because I know that's like the ship type, but I don't know if they also use that as the name. I don't remember. Anyway, we have the Marauder. We have the Bark Speeder for Crosshair, the guy we don't talk about. And we have another speeder that seems pretty obscure at first glance, but I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. And then we have our 5 figures plus a Gonk droid, or actually, they call him Gonki. So this is specifically Gonki. It's not another Gonk droid. So let's go ahead and we'll look at the figures first, starting with Tech and Gonki. So first of all, here is Gonki. Pretty simple Gonk droid build. He's got his little jointed legs, a little bit of detail, his face section. And yes, if you wanted to, Tech could certainly ride the Gonk droid. And of course, he's around so that Wrecker can do bicep curls with the Gonk droid. Tech looks pretty darn good. My main complaint, I just want to get it out of the way right off the bat, is the helmet looks a bit large to me. It's very large. I understand why they made it so large. They wanted to get all the detail, and that's great, but it definitely makes Tech seem bigger than like Wrecker, which is not the case. But it's a very nice helmet piece. Dual molded, has some really nice print. Got some red on the top. The visor is green. The visor does not flip down. That disappointed a lot of people, but I don't know. I'm fine with it. I don't really know why. I guess it's just if it were to flip down, it'd just be kind of fiddly and potentially could pop off. Yeah, it's just the same thing with like the Iron Man helmets, the old ones, or the ones that moved. They were great, but sometimes the visor would get really loose and just fall off all the time. So I'm honestly fine with the visor just staying up like it is. We have some nice print of like a skull on the side. Then his face looks great. Look at that. That looks really good. And then surprisingly, they gave him an alternate face without the glasses. And this is good for a handful of reasons. First of all, it's good to just have Tech without his glasses on. But that's also just a clone face. So you can have a confused clone. And just as long as his other face isn't visible, you can just have a confused clone. And then we also get some hair. So he can be like that. It's a little hard to recognize him as Tech without the helmet and the hair, or the like you have him with the face without the glasses, just because he has a fairly narrow face and it's a Lego face, so it's not exact. But when you do that, instantly recognizable, looks great. He's got some really good print on the front. He has a backpack, which unfortunately the rest of the Bad Batch has only printed backpacks. Only Tech gets a real backpack. There's the back of his armor. I've heard people complain about the color of his armor. It's kind of a gray, whereas in the show it was kind of a dirty white. And honestly, I think gray was a perfect choice. White would have been too bright, and then trying to print on all the dirt would have been pretty much impossible. So I think gray was a good compromise. He looks pretty darn accurate. What doesn't look pretty accurate is the guns. Those are ridiculously large. Lego should have gone with the original, like Captain Rex style guns if they wanted to be super accurate, but I don't think they use those pieces anymore. So just putting these in would have been fine. I mean, those are great pieces. I would have loved to see more of them. Not these. Lego is overusing these guns now. Lego seems to do that. They'll get stuck on one type of gun and put it everywhere, because they're using this for Mandalorian blasters. But, you know, it's at least they gave him blasters. So overall, really good figure. Just the helmet is kind of a bit too large. Next up is the big lug himself, Wrecker. Now, Wrecker is not any larger than your standard minifigure. That's kind of what I was saying about Tech having such a big helmet. Wrecker looks kind of small. Now, I don't really see any way to get around that other than giving him like the taller legs or something, or making him a big figure. None of those options are great. I think what Lego went with is fine. They gave him the bulkier shoulder armor just to give him a little extra bulk. And then his helmet is printed up fantastically. So his size is an excusable thing. The first couple waves of this shuttle that came out, people were getting 2 sets of the shoulder armor. Mine didn't have that, so I guess Lego corrected that mistake. Kind of unfortunate. I was hoping to get a second pair. But we have the 99 and the skull on the side. We got another, I guess that's supposed to be 99. 99. His blaster is supposed to be one of those clone commando guns, and that doesn't work. Like, Lego, really? This double barrel gun doesn't work for every situation. I mean, it's closer than some, but honestly, the ones that Tech had were closer. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and make my own. This is kind of, I blame Mega for making me okay with like cutting and splicing parts, Mega and Gundam. But yeah, I had some leftover bits from a gun that I made for the Mandalorian, so I went ahead and just glued it on there and gave him this gun. That looks a heck of a lot closer to the in-show weapon. So that's what I use for him instead of this. That's just, I mean, it's a cool gun, but Lego overuses it. Underneath, he has a really good face print. Look at that. He's got the scars, the blind eye. He's got kind of a smirk. He looks a lot more determined than Wrecker usually does, but I think that looks fine. I really like that. And then underneath, he has the same torso as you'll see on Hunter in just a moment. Overall, really like this one. LEGO did a pretty darn good job. The only real downside is the size. And speaking of Hunter, here he is. Like I was saying, you can see the torso here is the exact same as what we got on Wrecker. Wait, yeah, the legs are as well. They basically have the same armor, just Wrecker's is bigger. And then Hunter has his awesome helmet. It's not entirely accurate because it's printed on a Phase 2 helmet, whereas I think Hunter used an ARC Trooper helmet, a modified ARC Trooper helmet. But LEGO's ARC Trooper helmet has the fin on it, and Hunter's helmet doesn't. So aside from a new mold, this is the best choice. And the print looks fantastic. He's got like the skull on there. The red is all chipped up and worn. I like how you can look at it from this side. It's just a dark helmet, and look at it from this side. It's got like the skull. There's a print around the back. Printed backpack. Kind of a bummer. It kind of takes away some of the bulk of the figure, but I'm not too upset about it. It just is kind of frustrating that LEGO cut that corner. Speaking of cutting corners, well, okay, that was not supposed to be a pun, but he only comes with one knife. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. He comes with a pair of knives. These knives always come in sets of 2 on sprues, but Hunter also used the blaster fairly often, and I don't think it would have cost a ton to give him just one normal blaster, so I don't really know what's up with that. Yeah, his knife was like his signature thing, but having an actual blaster as well would have been good. Underneath, we've got a face print. Looks pretty good. He's got his skull. He's got his headband with the little tiny skull. The only thing is when you put this hair on, it covers up the Bad Batch skull, which is kind of a shame. Maybe even if it would be inaccurate, printed up closer to the center would have been better. And there are some other hair pieces you can use. None of them are great. I prefer this one just because it looks best to me. But there are definitely some other options that allow you to see the skull. Got an angry face. Looks pretty good. I really love his like Rambo look with the skull tattoo on there as well. But of course his helmet just looks too cool. Next up is Echo. This guy, if you don't know who Echo is, I mean, I'm assuming that most of you guys who are watching this video will have seen the Bad Batch already and kind of know who's who, but for the people that may not know, Echo was originally an ARC Trooper. He got captured by the Separatists, and they did a bunch of terrible experiments on him and turned him basically into a cyborg. So he didn't feel like accepted among normal clones anymore, so he joined the Bad Batch, and here he is. Usually he has like one of those little memory reader things that R2-D2 uses, but LEGO didn't do that. They gave him a hand, which the Hot Toys figure shows him getting a hand at some point. That didn't happen in the show itself, but maybe we'll see that happen at some point in the future. So I'm all right with this. He gets arm print, which is fantastic. Shoulder print with the red detailing, and then his kind of cybernetic part of his arm. His helmet looks epic. Again, it's not 100% accurate because of the shaping. It is just on a Phase 2 helmet, but I think they did a great job with the print. I love the just single slit visor and then all the extra metal detailing. If I had to complain, they didn't center the lines here, like up there. They kind of printed it off to the side. Other than that, this looks really good. Oh, those aren't centered either, but rarely will I get a clone that has those little printed valves centered. Torso looks great. He's got the skull there. His comma is printed. I'm not really sure why LEGO did that. A cloth would have been perfectly fine. It probably would have cost less than printing and designing all that. I could be wrong, but I would have preferred to see an actual cloth comma because that's one of Echo's really defining features is he always wears the comma. Around the back, he has another printed backpack, and he comes armed with this blaster. LEGO, why? Echo and Tech and Wrecker and Hunter all pretty much use the same guns, with the exception of Hunter and Wrecker using some of the like commando guns. Usually they'll all have the same pistols. I don't know why LEGO's deciding to give us a variation because, like, come on, one of the other LEGO Preferably the smaller blaster. That would have been great. Underneath, we have a great print for Echo's head. He can... he's got kind of the little silver discs. You can see the machinery poking through. And around the back, you can see his like implant. Kind of looks like Labat. And if we want to compare it to, say, Wrecker, you can see the skin tone for Wrecker is a lot darker, which is 100% accurate. Echo was very pale and sickly looking, even after he healed from his ordeal. So that's really accurate. Really, really love this guy. I think LEGO has done pretty much a fantastic job with the figures themselves. There just seems to be like one exception for each figure. Like Tech, big helmet. Wrecker, he's too small. Don't really see how that could be fixed. Hunter, his headband could have been printed better. And Echo has the printed comma instead of a physical one. But so far, nothing has been a deal breaker. And last, and I guess technically least, we have Good Soldiers Follow Orders, aka Crosshair, the traitor. Or I guess it's kind of the other way around. He wasn't the traitor, and that's what makes him a traitor. But yeah, he looks really good. He looks like almost like a Death Trooper, but with the clone design, and he's got the slit visor, which looks fantastic. My one big complaint that I want to get out of the way, and the same goes for pretty much every Phase 2 trooper who needs an antenna, same with like Rex and whatnot. He needs the antenna. Come on, LEGO. Like, the Phase 1 helmets had the peg hole in the side for you to attach things, and they just didn't do that for Phase 2, and it's been an issue since the Phase 2 helmet came out, and LEGO seems bent on not fixing that. So that's a bummer, because Crosshair's antenna was a pretty big feature of his armor. Other than that, though, he looks great. Printing of his armor is great. Very simple, fits the Clone Wars style, but looks really clean. Once again, nozzles are not printed straight at all. LEGO never seems to get that right. Printed backpack, that's frustrating, since Crosshair would typically mount his rifle on his backpack. But what is cool back here is you can see on his belt those little mirrors that he would attach when he was setting a trap, and then he would shoot it and it would bounce around. He used them multiple times. I think he did it in the Clone Wars as well as multiple times in the Bad Batch. So that's pretty cool. Very cool figure overall, even if he is a dirty traitor. And his face print underneath is super accurate. I'm really impressed with this one. LEGO somehow managed to show how long and narrow his face is just by moving the mouth print down slightly. And he has Crosshair's signature like scowl, like he hates everyone and everything in the entire universe. And of course, he's got his little tattoo of the crosshairs on his eye. Very cool figure. And I just wish LEGO would have given him a way to have an antenna. That would have been perfect. Moving on to the builds, this first speeder is one that we see during, now I don't remember which episode. When Fennec Shand was hunting Omega, we saw Hunter hijack this speeder and use it to chase after her. It's very accurate to what we see in the show, actually. I'm surprised. For such a one-off vehicle, LEGO put kind of a lot of work into it. Please excuse all the dust. There's so much pollen blowing around where I am right now that basically if I set something down, in 15 minutes, it looks like it's been sitting untouched for years. It's so frustrating. So we've got our little engine pods on the side here. They can move up and down. They were just kind of angled like this in the show. We have some stickers on here, a clip on the back for basically whatever accessory you want, and then a little thruster on the bottom. You can make the figure sit, so you can take that off. The weird thing is LEGO chose to use these handlebars, which means if you want him to actually hold the handlebars, he needs to not be stuck down to the studs, or you just kind of stick him to the studs and have him do this, which I guess that's kind of acceptable. I don't know, it just seems awkward. Why not just use the normal handlebars and have him be able to hold it? It's kind of weird. Overall, looks pretty cool. Kind of odd, and not many people will recognize it, but it's a nice nod to that episode. Wait, let me give Hunter his hair, because I think that's what he had. Yeah, like that. Yeah, Not bad. I could see just this speeder being in a set by itself. We have this Bark speeder. This is Crosshair's build. I guess they felt the need to give Crosshair something, even though he really never used a Bark speeder. It's done in like black and gray, which is nice. We can use it for pretty much any clones across all of the different factions. This is pretty much an identical build to the 501st speeder, with the exception of blasters up here, whereas the clips on this one are just kind of empty. And you can fit, I guess that's what you can store Crosshair's rifle on, and then you can fit Crosshair himself on it pretty easily. And if you feel like finagling it, you can get him to hold both of the control sticks. Oh yeah, and there's some stud shooters at the front. Kind of random. This feels like an afterthought to me. They were just like, oh, let's put in something else. What can we do? Bark speeder, because we have a Bark speeder design already. Let's just use it. Because he really never used a Bark speeder. He didn't do that. So it's a cool build. I like the Bark speeder itself. I just don't feel like it really needed to be in this set. The last of the builds is, of course, the Bad Batch attack shuttle itself. And there's a lot good about this set and a lot bad about this set, or this particular build. There is also a lot of good and bad about the set in general, but about this particular build, there's a lot of good and bad. So first of all, the color choices here are really interesting. I know a lot of people don't really like the sand blue because it's not 100% accurate, but personally, I think it was a better choice than just generic gray, because that allowed them to do things like put this and that, all those extra shades of gray to make it look worn, whereas if it was just gray, that would not have been possible. So you've got hinging wings. They are pretty solid. The build overall is pretty solid, honestly. A little more solid than I was expecting. Around the back, we got some angled stuff going on. The whole ship is built pretty nicely. The engines look good. Now, here's what doesn't look good. That is supposed to be the rear, like, cockpit gunner section, and then the guns are like 300 miles down at the bottom here. Whereas in the show, that was directly underneath. I'm not really sure what LEGO was thinking here, since they just kind of popped this. I can't even get it off. They put this slope here instead of putting the guns there. I'm not really sure why they did that. It's really bad choice when the guns should have been right there. Let's see. Let's fold the wings down to kind of the proper angle. Just about. It's pretty large when you get it all spread out like that. Barely fit in my studio. The printed windshield is nice. Looks pretty good. Angle it down a little bit. The build techniques are pretty cool. You can kind of hinge open the cockpit like that, but the real way you access the interior is like this. This is another one of the good and bad things. So this attaches on by one single stud, like it fastens on by one single stud. So if you turn this upside down, it just kind of falls open. That's a little weird to me. I think LEGO could have done better there. Inside, the space is pretty unremarkable, honestly. You can fit everyone in here, and you've got like this section here that hinges up and allows this, like, come out, this box. You get this little box that goes in there. You can kind of fit a few weapons in there. You can fit 2 people in the cockpit. We have a control panel, and there's some stickered sections that are just some decoration. But yeah, overall the inside is pretty unremarkable. It's basically just storage for the figures while you swoosh this around. But even swooshing it is a little difficult because of how floppy the top is. We get our lights on the sides here. Extra detail. Guns. On the bottom, it doesn't look too bad. Oh, whoops. Well, remember how I was talking about how sturdy this was? Apparently I found a way to break it without even meaning to. That's the first time I've actually had that happen. Bottom looks pretty good. There are spring shooters here. You can see the holes. I don't recommend you keep the spring missiles in there. It's so easy to just grab this and accidentally fire them off. I think there's like 2 or 3 of the missiles behind my desk now because I would forget that these spring shooters are loaded and just send them flying off into oblivion. Top fin looks pretty good. Even the non-stud side. Like, I was expecting this side to look really ugly, but it actually looks pretty decent. Markings are pretty much the same on both sides. The only real difference is you get the smooth part on this side and the light, whereas on the other side you don't. Now, this is basically a MIDI scale ship. It's not entirely micro scale, but it's not to scale with the minifigures. So that's Echo. All right. He should be like a third of his actual size here because the Marauder is a shuttle. So it's not a Starfighter. This is like Starfighter size. I'm not so sure how I feel about that. I honestly would have preferred that they scale the ship up a bit and leave out the two speeders. The two speeders feel like filler, and I think the Marauder itself could have been a lot better if they had been left out. It's good looking, but the scale really throws me off because it doesn't really fit in with a lot of the other Star Wars ships. Like I have the 2021 X-Wing that I'm going to take a look at, hopefully at some point here in the future. But this ship looks really wrong sitting next to it because it's about the same size as the X-Wing. But this is supposed to be a shuttle that's supposed to be able to carry multiple people for long distances as opposed to a starfighter. So that's, I don't know, that's weird to me. As long as you don't have this with other ships, it looks fine. But as soon as you put it next to minifigures or whatnot, it just starts looking weird. Well, there you have it. That is the Bad Batch Attack Shuttle. I have mixed feelings on this set because I absolutely love the Bad Batch minifigures. I think they all look really good. They each have like one marked flaw. Crosshair with his antenna, Tech with his helmet size, Echo with the missing comma, Wrecker is too small, Hunter, his helmet is entirely accurate, and his headband could have been done better. But overall, LEGO did a really good job, and they put them all in the one set, which I really appreciate. But then there's some things that aren't so good. So, first of all, where is Omega? We have no Omega. There's not even an Omega minifigure that exists right now. And I'm kind of worried that she's going to end up being some sort of exclusive polybag or, I don't know, something like that. Something janky like that. Maybe LEGO will be nice and give us, I don't know, like a set with maybe Cad Bane, Fennec, and Omega. Or Omega, the like disguised variant of Hunter and Rex. I don't know, something like that. But I'm worried we're going to have her be in an exclusive polybag. So that's a bummer. So we don't technically have the entire team because Omega's not here. And then the price. This is a $99 set, which I can respect the price because, you know, it's the Bad Batch, Clone Force 99, $99. That's kind of funny. But I don't feel like what we get in this set is entirely worth $99. It could have been, like, remove this and you have, like, a $70 set, maybe $60, but that's kind of wishful thinking because Star Wars is just expensive nowadays. $70 would have been preferable. This feels like an $80 set as is. If they had gotten rid of the speeders, upscaled the Marauder a bit, then it would have made a lot more sense to me. But as it is, it feels a bit too pricey. Not as disproportionately expensive as the AAT, but still not great. Overall, though, this is a set where it's like, if you're a fan of the Bad Batch, you're definitely going to want to get this set because you get all the Bad Batch and the minifigures are really fantastic. They're really unique, and I think LEGO did a pretty darn good job there. Just with the rest of the set, it's a little bit, could have been better. Definitely could have been better. Not bad, but it definitely could have been better. Personally, I really loved the Bad Batch show. I thought that the Bad Batch themselves were really cool. The whole idea of like the defective clones. That was a great idea, in my opinion. I really liked seeing them in the Clone Wars, too, when we saw them in action in Season 7. So getting the whole crew together was kind of a must for me. It's just the ship itself was less cool, I guess, than I was expecting, because I really liked their shuttle. As a midi-scale ship by itself, it's great, but otherwise it's a little bit weird, especially next to like an X-Wing. So if you're a fan of the Bad Batch and you want to get your hands on them, then go ahead. This is definitely worth it. It's retiring soon, but you can still find it in a lot of stores. I think even the LEGO website still has it. So hopefully that will still be true by the time this review is released. But this is definitely one I can foresee potentially being expensive on the aftermarket since there's not a high chance of LEGO releasing these characters again, at least not for a long time. So if you think at all you would want to get your hands on Bad Batch minifigures, go ahead and buy the set. If you just want the minifigures, buy the set and then sell off the extra stuff. Obviously, you're not going to make, like, you're not going to break even on that, but it'll be a little bit more affordable than maybe if you were to go and buy all the figures separate. So that's kind of the bottom line. It's like a 50-50 set. There's like half good, half bad, and a couple things that are just weird, like the blasters. Like, come on, LEGO, what are you doing here? Just pick one. Give Echo one of Tech's gun type or vice versa, but don't make it weird like that. Why didn't Hunter get a gun? So, yeah. Good set with some weird stuff. Some stuff that definitely could have been better. But overall, definitely worth getting if you want these minifigures because they are absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. And I'll see you next time.